Greetings everyone, Francis Fernando here. Hashtag how much will I make? This is my mantra when it comes to investing in real estate. I have seen way too many people get into the real estate market without taking those few extra steps to figure out exactly how much they will make by being involved in that transaction. For me, that is the most critical part of investing in real estate, is to look at it from a holistic standpoint and figure out how much will I create for myself with immediate cash flow, long-term capital gains, and also the tax benefits by getting involved in this piece of real estate transaction. It is measurable, it is calculatable, if there is such a word. You just need to take the steps to figure that out. So that's my mantra. Today's episode is really interesting. It is a question on, can someone manage their own real estate investments? Or put another way, how would someone manage their real estate investments? So for those of you that don't know, I am super qualified to speak about this, and I encourage you to listen to this episode. The reason is I am an engineer that turned entrepreneur, and my entrepreneurial journey was around real estate investing. I had invested in multifamily housing myself using my corporate America money. I was buying real estate, multifamily housing. I then started a property management company to manage not only my assets, but the assets of institutional lenders, the assets of other real estate investors that were looking to keep their primary gig, keep their job, invest in real estate as a part-time way to create wealth. So property management is near and dear to me. So the short answer to the question, can someone manage their own properties? The short answer to that is absolutely yes. Yes, they can manage their own properties. What I want to focus on this session or in this episode is what needs to be done in order to manage your own properties. So I'm going to break it down for you in the simplest way possible. After 15 years of running property management, and running real estate assets, close to $40 million worth of real estate assets, tens of thousands of tenants, and hundreds of clients, I broke property management down into 5 categories. And so what I want to do is state those categories to you, and at a high level, the main focal point, if there's one write me downer, if there is such a word, is you've got to have systems and processes for each and every one of these 5 areas that I'm going to talk about. So without further ado, area number 1 in property management is called resident relations. That is the management and care of your product. What is your product as a real estate investor? Your product as a real estate investor is your tenant, your happy paying tenant that has a relationship with you, and that has a relationship with your property, and that has a relationship with all the other tenants, so the co-tenants in a building. It is making sure that there is harmony associated with that tenant, so that tenant is ultimately paying the rent that is due, that is your source of revenue. So stated again, number 1 is resident relations. You want to make sure that you have systems and processes in how to care for that tenant. A quick example is, should that tenant have an issue as far as a problem with another tenant, or a problem or a delay in being able to pay their rent, or a physical issue with a maintenance issue that's going on at the property. Basically, all the needs and concerns of that tenant need to be addressed in a harmonious fashion so that that tenant is happy, because ultimately a happy tenant is a paying tenant. A happy tenant is also a staying tenant. And if you know anything about real estate investing, it's making sure that there's longevity in those tenants. So number 1 is resident relations. Number 2 is leasing. making sure that when a unit becomes vacant, it is quickly and swiftly put back on the market with a leasing initiative. This is the marketing of units. It's the physical showing of the vacant apartment. It's the physical move-in inspection and the move-out inspection of a unit. Are there systems in place that you have before you decide to manage your own properties? If you are working, I suspect you are working full-time, and if you're working full-time, do you have the ability to leave your job, advertise the apartment, field the phone calls that are coming, pre-screen people that are prospective tenants for those units, and then physically get into your car and go out and there and do a showing? Now, there may be other ways to conduct these. You may be able to sign up with a realtor, but realize that there's going to be costs associated with that. So it's just making sure that you have the infrastructure, the systems and processes. My overarching theme in this is to make sure you have systems and processes. So the second one, as I mentioned, was leasing. The third is maintenance and capital improvement. The difference between the two, maintenance and capital improvement, is maintenance is your routine work. There's a faucet leaking, there's a hot water tank out, there's some sort of repair in an apartment. How are you taking care of those day-to-day repair issues? Do you have the infrastructure? Do you have the systems and processes that the tenant would report that up to you, and that you would in turn report that into an individual to take care of? Or is your system where a tenant would directly report that? What is your workaround? What is your mechanism? Answer all these questions, and if you answer them and you're successful at answering them, then the answer to the higher level question, can you manage your own real estate, is a big fat yes. If the answer to those is, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these phone calls, I'm not sure about the infrastructure, I'm not sure what I'm going to do when a tenant connects with me or calls me, then the answer to that question is, then the hierarchical question is, can I manage my own real estate? The answer to that is no, until you have the systems in place. Capital improvement are the larger projects. So those are the projects that are capital intensive. You're, from a tax perspective, you're not writing those expenses off as routine maintenance, but more so as capital expenses. These are the larger projects that you've identified as long-term. I need to replace a roof. I need to replace the carpeting. Another capital improvement that occurs regularly is your apartment turnovers. So when a tenant leaves, when you have that leasing activity going on and a tenant leaves, what is your infrastructure and what are your systems, and who are the technicians that you're going to use to turn that unit around, get it ready to be marketed and re-rented? Those are the important questions. That's what capital improvement is. Item number 4 is accounting. This is a critical component because accounting involves accounts receivable and accounts payable. Again, accounting is accounts receivable and accounts payable. My wife has an accounting background, and she has pounded this into my head. Accounts receivable is the rents that are coming in, and you want to make sure that the rents that are coming in, you have a system for that. What are the timelines that people have to pay? What are the systems that you have in place as you don't collect rent throughout the month? Because the ability to collect rent over the month diminishes each day that goes on. So the quicker you collect the rent at the start of the month, the more chances are that you're going to collect that rent and keep that rent. As the month progresses, your ability to collect that rent diminishes over time. So accounts receivable is the collections. What are the processes involved in that? If you don't collect rent, then what are the processes and steps that you take? Accounts payable, the AP side of that, are the related operational expenses. Who is going to pay that water bill? Who is going to pay that electric bill? who is going to convert and stay on the phone with the utility company for hours. Yes, for hours on end sometimes when you're doing a conversion. A tenant moves out and you're doing a conversion of utilities. Who is going to handle that? So that's accounting. Number 5, and the final section here, is legal. If you are owning multifamily housing or any form of investment real estate, there is going to be housing code that stipulates the safety features, the fire code features, the landlord-tenant laws and regulations. So there's going to be compliance associated with that. Do you have the systems? Do you have attorneys in place should you need to do the unfortunate time that you need to do an eviction? What are your legal systems and processes available, and have you reviewed them? If you can answer all 5 of those from a systems perspective and from a threshold perspective. So do you have thresholds built into each and every one of them? In other words, if a tenant doesn't pay between a certain time, do you have a threshold time that says, once I hit this threshold, here are the activities that happens? So it's important to answer that. Do you have processes? Do you have systems? Do you have thresholds for all of those 5 areas? And if you can answer those confidently, yes, then that's great. If you can't, then you need to build them. If you need help building them, here's my offer to you. Simply connect with me. I have these processes. I've built these processes. I've perfected these processes over 15 years, and I can share those with you. I'd love to have a discussion with you about those. Finally, and sort of as a bonus, is to make sure that you have some sort of software. In today's world, we have apps, we have software. We do not need to track these in archaic systems or in Excel spreadsheets. We want to have a software that's available and readily accessible by our cell phones, that we could, anywhere we go, we have a dashboard on the health of how our property is performing. So make sure that you have access to a software. The softwares that I've used, I'm going from old to new as I evoluted my property management company for close to 15 years. I started off with a product called Tenant Pro. We progressed into a product called Rent Manager, and finally, before I sold my property management business after running it for close to 15 years, we were on a very automated platform called Appfolio. So you look at those platforms. There's many of them out there. You want to make sure you evaluate one that is cost sensitive to you and it works for you and for your specific portfolio size. But again, if you needed some help on that, evaluating property management companies, just reach out to me. So I hope this video was of value. Again, the answer to the question, can you manage your own real estate assets? The answer to that is an overwhelming yes, as long as you have systems, processes, and thresholds for resident relations, for leasing, for maintenance and capital improvement, for accounting, and finally for the legal aspects of real estate. Take care, happy real estate investing, and consider managing your own real estate asset, because hashtag how much will I make will definitely increase because you have vertical integration in your businesses. Thank you so much. Take care.